Black Americans are about 13 to 14% of the population.
Yes,
about half of all prisoners are Black.
Exactly.
So Blacks commit more crimes than whites do. They commit more murders, they commit more arsons, they commit more kidnappings. For example, Blacks are 13% of the population and they commit 58% of all the murders.
Black people commit violent crimes at higher rates per capita than any other group in America. The majority of violent crimes are committed by white people, a minority by Black people. But that percentage is much higher than the percentage of Americans who are Black. And it's disproportionate relative to other groups. This is true. Saying it shouldn't be controversial.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So I have a question for you today. Have you ever wondered about the complex relationship between race, crime, and justice in the United States of America? And the statistics can be confusing and often spark heated debates. And we hear one thing from one side and something completely different from another side. And today we're going to talk about something very sensitive but incredibly important conversation. We'll be looking at some of the claims made about crime statistics, debunking some myths, and getting to the heart of what the data actually tells us. It's a conversation that can be uncomfortable, but as you'll see, it's one we absolutely need to have if we want to find real solutions. But before we get started, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts after the video. And let me tell you something, your engagement helps us continue to bring you these critical discussions. So let's jump right in. We have a couple of clips to watch and that lay out the different sides of this debate. I'll be back on the other side to break it all down for you, so keep it locked.
Charlie Kirk was wrong about the prison numbers. But part of Garrison's response is the problem with how we discuss taboo topics. Instead of acknowledging what's true and what's false, he dismisses the entire point. For example, Garrison cites data about wrongful convictions as if it disproves Charlie's claim. That chart shows that nearly 1,200 murder exonerations happened from 1989 to 2023. But there were almost 600,000 murders in that time frame. That's an exoneration rate of only 0.2%. Yes, Black people are wrongfully convicted more often. That's a real problem. That's inequality. But remove every single exoneration and nearly 600,000 murders still remain, disproportionately committed by Black people. Now, do racists make the same point Charlie made? Yes. But racists making the same points doesn't make the points racist or wrong. And when we attack honest people for stating them, the points don't disappear. They just move from the light of the town square to the dark alleyways, where the real racists lurk. The defensiveness people feel when confronted with these points is understandable. And it's self-defeating. Because you know who suffers when Black crime isn't addressed? Black people. Black Americans are murdered at 7 times the rate of white people by other Black people. Now, Black criminals come from worse backgrounds they didn't choose. They're behind from birth. The intergenerational effects of slavery are real, even 170 years later. That's what happens when your ancestors were slaves for 400 years. That's not fair. That's not their fault. And it is their responsibility because they chose violence. Other Black people didn't. Ultimately, it falls on all of us to elevate the least of us. And to do that, we must be awake, both to what's bad about people's circumstances and what's wrong with their choices. And we should never shut down conversations about the truth, even when it's triggering, because we cannot solve problems that we refuse to see. I think Garrison's video is important. Some of his points I agree with, others I do not. I cover them all on my newsletter, including why his claim that we don't have the crime data is flawed. Go to the link in bio and drop your email to hear the full response.
Welcome back to the channel, and I have a lot to unpack here. The clips brought up some really challenging questions and some conflicting information. It is a debate we see playing out all the time. One side presenting statistics, the other side refuting them, and a third trying to find a path through the complexity. What we need to do now is move past the talking points and look at the verifiable data to understand what's really going on. Let's start with the prison population. This is a topic that's often misstated, so it is important to be precise. one claim we had was that black people make up half of the prison population. However, according to the US government's own data, that's not accurate. The real number is that 80%. Well, that's still a disproportionately high number given that black people make up only about 13% of the US population. It's not half. So it's also a common misconception that black people are the majority of the prisoners. The data actually shows that 57% of the US prison population is white. This puts things in a different perspective. The majority of people in prison are in fact white, but what we can ignore is the disproportionate narrative for black individuals, and they are overrepresented in the prison system compared to their share of their general population. This disparity is one of the key issues that needs to be addressed, and it is a problem that goes beyond the numbers and points to deeper systemic issues we'll discuss in a moment. So now let us talk about the violent crime and murder rates. This is where the conversation gets particularly sensitive. The data shows that black people do commit violent crimes at higher rates per capita than any other group in America. To put some numbers on that, one of the claims we had was that black people, who are 13% of the population, commit 58% of all the murders. Another source noted that even after accounting for exonerations, nearly 600,000 murders still remain disproportionately committed by black people. It is a hard truth to hear, and it's one that often gets shut down in public discourse, but we have to be able to talk about this if we want to find solutions. At the same time, we need to be clear about a few things. The majority of violent crimes are committed by white people. This is a simple numerical fact. However, the rate at which black people commit these crimes is significantly higher. It is a classic example of how a minority of the population can be responsible for a disproportionately high percentage of certain statistics. This is not about blaming a group. It is about acknowledging a reality that has serious consequences for the community it most affects. This brings us to the issue of how crime impacts communities, and the sources were looked at highlight a stark and heartbreaking statistic. Black Americans are murdered at 7 times the rate of white people, and the vast majority of those murders are committed by other black people. This is a brutal consequence of what has been referred to as black crime not being addressed, quote unquote. It means that when these issues are ignored, the people who suffer the most are the ones within the black community. This is not just an abstract statistic. Let me say that it is a matter of life and death. Now, the data shows us that to protect black lives, we need to be able to openly and honestly talk about crime within the black community. It is a painful but necessary step towards finding real safety and justice. Another critical piece of this puzzle is the issue of exonerations and wrongful convictions. This is a point that highlights a serious failing within our justice system. The data is clear. Black people are disproportionately affected by wrongful convictions. While they make up about 13% of the population, they account for 53% of all criminal exonerations. When you look specifically at murder cases, the number is even more striking, with black people making up 55% of all murder exonerations. This means black people are more likely than any other group to be convicted of crimes they did not commit. This is a really demonstrable problem of inequality in the justice system. This is not just invalidate the disproportionality in crime rates, but it does show that the system is not working equally for everyone. So how can Americans make sense out of all this? They got statistics about disproportionate crime rates, and their statistics about disproportionate wrongful convictions. They might seem to contradict each other, but they actually point to a more complex reality. This is where we need to look at the systemic factors at play. And the sources we looked at touch on few key areas. First, there are the intergenerational effects of slavery and socioeconomic disadvantages. As one of the clips said, the intergenerational effects of slavery are real even 170 years later. Many individuals involved in crime come from what were called worse backgrounds and are behind from birth. This is not an excuse, but it is an explanation of the circumstances that can lead to poor choices. It is about being awake both to what's bad about people's circumstances and what's wrong with their choices. We can acknowledge the challenges individuals face due to historical and ongoing disadvantages, while also holding them accountable for their actions. Then this brings us to the bigger picture of why it is so important to have these conversations. Okay, the sources suggest that refusing to discuss these triggering truths prevents us from solving problems. When honest people are attacked by stating the facts that the conversation doesn't disappear, it just moves from the light of the town square to the dark alleyways where the real racists lurk, quote unquote. This is a dangerous outcome. By shutting down an open, honest discussion, we allow the topic to be co-opted by those with malicious intent. We need to be able to talk about both the difficult truths about crime data and the systemic injustices, like the high rate of wrongful conviction. It is about being able to hold two seemingly contradictory ideas in our minds at once. The black individuals are disproportionately involved in crime, and that the justice system treats them unequally. Acknowledging both of these realities is the only way we can work towards a more just and equitable future for everyone. It is about finding solutions for the communities that are suffering the most. To this juncture, I'd say that thanks for watching, and remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for tuning in, and let me say that I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out.